Shadows of Britain. Wookey Hole, the cave that never let go. In Somerset, the land does not always rise upward. Sometimes it opens. Beneath the green fields and quiet villages of the Mendip Hills, the earth is hollowed through with water and time. Rivers disappear without warning. Hills breathe cold air, stone. Corridors twist away into darkness so deep that sound itself seems to lose direction. At the heart of this underworld lies Wookey Hole, a place feared long before it was ever explored, measured, or named. Long before electricity, long before explanation, long before comfort. To early Somerset people, Wookey Hole was not a cave. It was a mouth. From it poured the river Axe, cold and sudden, emerging fully formed from darkness. No one saw where it began. No one knew how deep it ran. Mist clung to the entrance even on warm days, and the sound of water echoed outward like breathing. The cave did not feel empty. It felt occupied. In a world where land was life, anything that disrupted crops, livestock, or health demanded a cause. And when sickness spread, when cattle failed, when storms lingered too long over the Mendips, the villagers looked toward the cave. They believed something lived there. Not an animal, not a spirit of the dead, a witch. The witch of Wookey Hole was not described as human in the way others were. She belonged to the cave. She was said to appear at the entrance during storms, her shape warped by mist and rushing water. Some said she had glowing eyes. Others that her voice echoed unnaturally, arriving before her words could be understood. She was blamed for failed harvests, sour milk and sickened cattle, children falling ill without cause, sudden storms rolling in from clear skies. Fear gathered around her name, and fear once shared becomes truth. Eventually, the villagers decided something had to be done. Different versions of the story, name different figures. A monk, a holy man, sometimes one associated with nearby Glastonbury. Whoever he was, he entered the cave not with weapons but with faith. He followed the sound of the river inward, deeper, colder, into a place where light failed and echoes twisted back wrong. The cave resisted him. Water roared, stone dripped endlessly, shadows moved where nothing should have moved. And there in the depths, he confronted the witch. What happened next is never told the same way twice. Some say he prayed until the cave shook. Some say he pronounced a curse. Some say he held up a sacred object and spoke words the cave could not endure. But all versions end the same way. The witch was turned to stone. Deep inside Wookey Hole stands a natural rock formation known today simply as the Witch. A hunched, twisted shape, unmistakably humanoid, frozen mid-motion. Water drips over it constantly, layer by layer, as though time itself is still completing the spell. The villagers believed the curse was broken. The land recovered. The river flowed clean. The witch was silenced, but the cave was never forgiven. Wookey Hole did not become safe. It became contained. People avoided it unless necessary. Children were warned away. Even shepherds skirted its entrance when mist thickened. Stories persisted of voices echoing from within, of figures glimpsed beyond torchlight, of people entering too far and returning changed, quieter, shaken, unable to describe exactly what they had felt. The cave was not violent. It was patient. Across the Mendips, similar fears took hold. Sinkholes opened without warning. Cold air breathed from cracks in the ground. Fog gathered suddenly in places like Eber Gorge, where sound behaved strangely and distance collapsed. People spoke of the hills as though they were hollow, not empty but occupied. A world beneath the world. Modern science explains Wookey Hole as a vast limestone cave system, carved by water over hundreds of thousands of years. The river Axe is mapped. The chambers are named. Depths measured, lights installed. And yet, even now, seasoned cavers speak carefully of the deeper passages. Equipment fails unexpectedly. Sound disorients. Darkness presses inward rather than simply surrounding. The cave has claimed lives, not through malice but through indifference. Visitors describe the same sensation again and again. Not fear, not panic, but the sense of being noticed. Water amplifies everything. Every footstep echoes back altered. Every drip feels deliberate. Shapes form at the edge of vision and vanish when stared at directly. Time stretches. Minutes feel longer underground. And somewhere deep within the cave, the witch still stands, stone-shaped like warning, soaked endlessly by the river she was said to command. Whether she ever lived matters less than this. The cave shaped belief, belief shaped behavior, and behavior shaped memory. Somerset has always lived between worlds. Above ground lie ancient trackways, burial mounds, standing stones, and the lonely rise of Glastonbury Tor, places that pull the eye upward. Below ground lies something older still, unseen and unyielding, cutting its own paths regardless of human meaning. Wookey Hole sits where those worlds meet, a place where fear hardened into legend, where legend hardened into stone, where the land absorbed it all and kept going. And when heavy rain falls on the mendips and the river swells, and mist pours from the cave mouth like breath from something sleeping, it is easy to understand why people once believed a witch lived there, because some places do not need monsters to feel dangerous. They only need depth. The ghost roads of the Somerset levels. In Somerset, there is a land that refuses to stay still. The Somerset levels lie low and wide, barely above the waterline. Here the horizon stretches unnaturally far, broken only by willows, drainage ditches, and roads that seem to float rather than rest on the earth. Fog forms easily, sound travels oddly, distance lies, and on certain nights the roads do not behave as roads should. The levels were once sea, long before Roman causeways, before Saxon settlements, before medieval drainage. This was a shifting inland marsh, a place of reeds, shallow water and hidden channels. Travel was treacherous. Paths appeared and vanished with the seasons. What was solid one week might swallow a cart the next. When the land was gradually reclaimed, roads were forced across it, raised just enough to survive floods. These narrow causeways became lifelines, threading between villages like thin strands of certainty across uncertainty. They were never meant to feel safe. Even today, driving across the levels at night is unsettling. Fog rolls in without warning, thick enough to erase headlights. Ditches run parallel to the road, invisible but close. The land offers few landmarks and depth perception collapses. It becomes difficult to judge speed, distance, even direction. And then, there are the stories. For generations, locals have spoken of roads that appear where no road exists. Drivers describe turning onto a familiar route, the A361, a lane near Boroughbridge, or a back road between villages, only to find themselves traveling far longer than expected. The road stretches unnaturally. Junctions do not arrive. The landscape repeats itself, identical bends unfolding again and again. Some report seeing another road alongside the real one, running parallel for a few seconds before fading back into mist. Others describe headlights behind them that never close the distance and never fall back. There are older stories, too, from before engines. Carters spoke of paths that led straight into water, even though no ditch or rhine had ever been there before. Horses would stop dead, refusing to move forward. Walkers would follow a clear track only to find themselves knee-deep in marsh moments later. The road, they said, had shifted. One of the most persistent tales concerns phantom travelers. Figures are seen walking along raised roads in the fog, solitary silhouettes, often dressed in outdated clothing. When approached, they fade, dissolve, or are revealed to be nothing at all. Sometimes they appear to be flagging down help. Sometimes they walk steadily ahead, always just beyond reach. And sometimes they turn and look back. The levels have always been associated with the dead who did not stay buried. Peat preserves bodies unnaturally well. Over the centuries, human remains have surfaced from the wetlands, some prehistoric, some medieval, some far more recent than expected. Trackways of oak planks laid down thousands of years ago still lie beneath the fields, the ghost roads of an earlier world, submerged but not forgotten. When mist thickens over the land, it is easy to believe that old paths resurface, briefly reclaiming their place. Sound behaves strangely here. Engines seem muffled. Footsteps echo where there should be none. Voices carry across fields with no clear source. Bells are sometimes reported, distant, slow, as though rung underwater. Some claim these are echoes from drowned villages, lost churches or monasteries swallowed by flood and neglect. Others say it is simply the wind moving through reeds and wire. The effect is the same. You listen without understanding. Modern explanations exist. Fog disorients. Flat landscapes remove visual cues. Long straight roads create hypnotic driving conditions. The brain fills gaps when reference points disappear. But explanation does not erase experience. Too many people describe the same sensations. Roads that feel longer than they should be. Junctions that seem to move. A sudden certainty that something is wrong without knowing why. People slow down instinctively. Some stop altogether. Some turn back even when nothing visible tells them to. The land tells them. There is a reason monasteries were built on islands here. A reason Glastonbury once rose from water like a promise. A reason causeways were sacred long before they were practical. The levels were never conquered. They were managed. And management is not ownership. On clear days, the Somerset levels feel calm, open, almost gentle. On foggy nights, they revert to something older. A place where direction is negotiable and certainty dissolves. Roads blur, boundaries soften, the past presses close, and when you drive through the mist, unsure how long you have been traveling, watching the verge slide by with unsettling sameness, it is worth remembering, some roads are not just routes through space, they are paths through memory, and in the Somerset levels, memory does not always stay buried. Cheddar Gorge, the Valley of Bones. There are valleys that shelter, and there are valleys that keep, cut deep into the limestone of the Mendip Hills. Cheddar Gorge opens suddenly, a vast wound in the land where cliffs rise sheer and pale, streaked by water and shadow. By day it feels dramatic, by night it feels exposed. Sound behaves oddly here. Wind accelerates. The walls seem closer than they should be. This is England's largest gorge, and it is filled with the dead. Cheddar Gorge has been occupied and unused for tens of thousands of years. Long before farming, before villages, before belief had names, people came here for shelter. The caves offered protection from weather and predators. Water was close. Stone was workable. Life gathered here early. So did death, deep within the caves, especially. Gough's Cave, archaeologists, uncovered human remains dating back nearly 15,000 years. Among them was the famous Cheddar Man, Britain's oldest near-complete human skeleton. But Cheddar Man was not alone. He was part of a pattern. Bones found here bear unmistakable marks. Cut marks consistent with butchery. Broken long bones cracked open for marrow. Skulls deliberately modified, shaped into skull cups. This was not ritual burial. This was cannibalism. To modern ears, the word carries horror. But in the Ice Age world, survival was unforgiving. Food was scarce. Winters were lethal. The line between life and death was thin, and the dead did not go to waste. But Cheddar's evidence goes further. The treatment of skulls suggests something more than desperation. Careful shaping, reuse, possibly ritual, possibly remembrance, possibly belief. The gorge was not just a shelter. It was a place of consumption, of bodies, of identity, of memory. As millennia passed, people came and went. The caves were reused. Fires were lit where fires had been lit before. Tools were left. Bones accumulated. The gorge layered human presence the way it layers. Stone, one deposit over another, never quite clearing what came before. And then slowly people began to avoid it. By the medieval period, Cheddar Gorge had acquired a reputation. Locals spoke of strange sounds from the caves, of echoes that did not belong to footsteps, of sudden gusts of cold air that extinguished torches without warning. The gorge became a place you passed through, not a place you lingered. Even executions nearby avoided the deepest shadows. In later centuries, the gorge was quarried. Stone was taken. Caves were opened wider. Bones were disturbed and sold. Victorian curiosity turned human remains into objects. Skull fragments became souvenirs. Skeletons were displayed. The dead were removed from context and given price tags. Once again, bodies were consumed, this time by fascination. Despite lighting, paths, and railings, Cheddar Gorge resists domestication. The cliffs still loom. Rocks still fall without warning. The temperature shifts abruptly. Animals behave strangely near cave mouths. Even modern climbers speak of the sensation of being watched from above. Sound carries upward, but not always downward. At night, the gorge empties of people but not of presence. Wind funnels through the rock, producing low, resonant tones that feel intentional. Footsteps echo when no one is there. Headlights distort depth, making the road feel narrower than it is. The valley does not sleep. What unsettles most is the continuity. People have always died here. People have always been processed here. Bodies have always been altered here. Whether eaten, buried, displayed, or sold, the human form has never rested easily in Cheddar Gorge. It has always been used. Standing at the base of the cliffs, it is impossible not to feel small, not just in scale, but in time. The rock above you has watched. Humanity changed shape repeatedly. Hunter, farmer, monk, tourist, all temporary. The gorge remains. Cheddar Gorge does not haunt with ghosts. It haunts with evidence. Proof that survival once demanded brutality. That ritual once involved flesh. That the line between reverence and consumption has always been thin. And when the light fades and the cliffs darken, and the caves breathe cold air into the valley, it becomes clear why this place has never fully belonged to the living. Because some landscapes are not shaped by beauty or terror alone. They are shaped by what people were willing to do, to survive.